that was good. That's good. Well, anyway, I think we can get started. Welcome to all of you who are here. We have 40 people that have joined out of 65 that have registered. And we have people from all over the world. And I see some people from India right now. And it must be pretty early there for them, and they're still there. And then there are people from Canada, United States, West Coast and East Coast and so on. And thank you very much for joining. I sincerely feel that this is one of the rarest opportunities for us to get together in such large numbers from all over the world. And I'm very, very grateful to Mr. Mark Lee's presence for gracing this occasion. Thank you so very much. And Professor Krishna for his generosity in giving all his wisdom and knowledge and sharing it with us. And I cannot thank either of them enough in the day. I was listening to Mr. Mark talk very recently at May Gathering, and the topic of his talk was the books that he had just written. And a statement that he had made a very, very deep impression in me, and I thought I would just share with everybody, especially in his presence. He said that he had heard Krishnamurti once say, that the teachings are not in his talks, not in his films, or not in his tapes, or not in the discussions, or none of the publications and so on. They are not there. Now, we've all heard Krishnamurti say that word is not the thing, description is not the described, and so on, often enough. But to hear a statement of this magnitude and depth really shook me up. And that is something that the moment that Mr. Mark Lee agreed to introduce Professor Krishna, that struck my mind, and I thought I would just go ahead and share with everybody on that. By way of a little background for Mr. Lee, Mr. Mark Lee, he went to UC Santa Barbara and got his education in literature. And in the 1960s, he went to Sanan and listened to Krishnamurti, and he had lunch with Krishnamurti and met him several times. When Krishnamurti asked him to become the headmaster for the junior high school in Rishi Valley, and he gladly accepted that role. And he met his future wife there, Dr. Asha, and they got married and they had twins. Unfortunately, due to health reasons for the twins, they had to come back to the United States and relocate back to the USA. And in 1973, I'm told that Krishnamurti asked him to take, to start the Oak Grove School. And both of them took the lead and then went ahead and became the founder directors and started the school. And once they built the school up to the level of a high school, then Mr. Mark Lee moved away from that and then became the executive director of KFA. And in that role, he served for 2 decades, and it's not 1 or 2 years and so on. And at this point in time, I really have to bring up one point. And I think I'm making an assumption, but that's a very, very valid assumption. Just think of the spouse, Dr. Asha. How much support she would have given to Mr. Lee to do all this unselfish work, fulfilling his passion, and then moving along the direction of disseminating the teachings of Krishnamurti. And, you know, my gratitude to her for doing that, because all that potential that was there, and Mr. Mark Lee has found its way to all of us. And thank you, sir, on that. And then after 2 decades, currently he is the director of Krishnamurti Foundation of America, Foundation of India. And one of the things that comes to my mind is the collective works that 17-volume collective works that he had worked on, that he published. And then he also published several people who are close to Krishnamurti and their memoirs about them and so on. So this is incredible. Thank you very much for gracing this occasion, sir. I really appreciate that. On behalf of all of us. Anyway, by the way, my name is Ekambareshwar Rao Agastya, and then I want to Rohan to raise his hand, if you don't mind, Rohan. Rohan is the genius behind putting this whole thing together on this virtual medium for all of us to come together at this point in time to do this. And thank you, Rohan, for doing that. Yeah, we are part of the J Krishnamurti, Bay Area J Krishnamurti dialogue group. We're located here in San Jose, Campbell, California. By the way, the time is around a little after 5 o'clock today, just so you know the time difference and so on. Professor Krishna himself is in Florida at this time. What I was going to say was, yes, we used to meet for once a month about 9 years ago, and then it moved into twice a month, and now we meet every Saturday. Especially now that we are in this COVID situation, we are able to meet, and then we meet for about 3 hours every Saturday afternoon, and then we dialogue. The very process of inquiry in our mind has a transforming effect on the society, and then I think we really take that very seriously in our group. Now, a few mundane logistics before I hand over the microphone to Mr. Lee. While the speakers are speaking, Rohan is going to mute everybody so that there's no disturbance at all, especially when Professor Krishna is giving his lecture and so on. As far as the course structure and the breaks and all those things are concerned, we'll take the lead from Professor Krishna, obviously. And what else I was going to say? Let me see here. Oh, recording. Okay, this point had come up. Several people have written to me and so on. Just put yourself in the shoes of the organizers. In order to be able to capture approximately 35 hours of contact time and then be able to publish it in its completeness and fullness without missing a beat and so on, it's a horrendous task, and anybody can imagine. So, not having been bestowed with the kind of infrastructure that is probably necessary, commensurate with being to handle such a task, we're not in a position to commit that we'll be able to record and publish anything at this point. That's why I have encouraged everybody to record things on their own. If you are concerned about the privacy, just go ahead and mute your devices or shut off the video. There's absolutely no problem. But we have every intention to record and publish. We are not, if we are not able to do that, it's not because of lack of effort from our side. That much I can assure you. We're doing everything that we can to do that. But if you are not able to fulfill that obligation, please, understand that, we're not committing anything to do it. But take care of your privacy situation, whatever that might be, and then let's go from there. Any questions on any of these things that I just talked about? And then anyway, we're here, and then during the course of the conversation, during the breaks and so on, you can go ahead and send me chat mail, and then I can respond to you. It's not a problem at all. Rohan, am I missing anything?
No, I don't think so. Just wanted to reiterate that I will be muting everyone once the professor starts speaking and unmuting when we begin the question and answer session. So excited and welcome everyone. And thank you, Professor Krishna and Mark Lee, for joining us here.
So, Mr. Markley, may I now request you to introduce Professor Krishna, sir?
Yes, thank you. It is an honor to be able to do this, and I feel that there is so much that could be said about Professor Krishna. I would like to give a fairly formal introduction because I believe he deserves it. He held the confidence of Krishnamurti for many years, and I think when you understand Professor Krishna's background, his great humility, sensitivity, and affection, you will realize that, and also the fact that he's one of the few remaining people alive today who worked with Krishnamurti, knew him well. So Dr. Krishna was born in Chennai in 1938, but he was brought up in Indore, where his parents were very outstanding educators. After completing his BSc 1957 at Indore, he joined the university and did his MSc in physics in 1959. That very year, he came to Varanasi as a research scholar at the Benares Hindu University, where he completed his PhD in the field of X-ray crystallography. His PhD thesis was published by John Wiley and Sons in New York as a book, and it was extremely well received in 1966. Thereafter, he was appointed on the Faculty of Physics in the department at BHU as lecturer and rose to become a reader in 1968 and then a professor in 1972. He had published 2 books and over 70 research papers in international journals. He was elected fellow to the Indian Academy of Science in Bangalore, as well as the Indian National Science Academy in New Delhi, in recognition of his research contributions. In 1986, at the personal invitation of Krishnamurti, he took a voluntary retirement from BHU and joined the Rajghat Education Center of the Krishnamurti Foundation, India, as its rector. This is a term that Krishnamurti came up with as someone who would have overall responsibility for the whole institution, whole operation. He was also principal of the Rajghat Besant School until 2003, when he retired and went back to his hometown of Indore. In 2007, he was recalled by the Krishnamurti Foundation as the in-charge person of the Krishnamurti Study Center in Rajghat. Professor Krishna is today a trustee of the foundation in India and a life member of the Theosophical Society. He has delivered lectures and conducted dialogues on the teachings of Krishnamurti all over the world and lectured on issues related to education, science, and spirituality. His talks can be read in their entirety on his website, pkrishna.org, for those of you who are interested. He has recently published a book about Krishnamurti and his teachings titled, quote, "A Jewel on a Silver Platter, Remembering J Krishnamurti." and it's published by Pilgrims in Delhi, and it's available on lulu.com. Dr. Krishna's stellar academic credentials and his years at the Rajkot School and the Center, they confirm Krishnamurti's confidence in him as an educator and a highly serious and religious person, capable of caring for and nurturing a large Krishnamurti organization. But in my estimation, it's Krishna's great humanity, his affection, and his love of learning that confirm Krishnamurti's great confidence in Dr. Krishna. We are all fortunate to be with one of, as I said, the very few people still alive today who worked with Krishnamurti and who had shared his life with him. So we are fortunate, and we welcome Professor P. Krishna.
Thank you, Mark, for those kind words. Reminded me of a long past gone by. We have known each other for more than 30 years, and it has always been a great pleasure to be working with you on so many projects. I would first like to verify that my voice is clear and everybody is able to hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Dr. Rao asked me to say a few words about the format. Well, on Fridays, we'll be meeting for 2 hours. Today, I want to give an introductory talk about how we should approach Krishnamurti's teachings. Because for the next 6 or 7 weeks, we are going to go into this text and have dialogue over various issues that he has raised about our life, serious issues. And he said, approach to anything is often more important than what you do with it. So I want to devote some time to discuss this with you as to what is the right approach to Krishnamurti's teachings themselves. And I found that someone had asked him this question, not quite in these words, but somewhat similar. And I want to share that with you, his reply to it. The questioner asked him, Mr. Krishnamurti, how can the viewer best share in these dialogues? How can he gain the most from the experience? K said, I think it all depends how serious you are. How serious in the sense, how deeply you want to go into these questions, which is after all your life. We are not discussing theoretically some abstract hypothesis, but we are dealing with actual daily life of every human being, whether he lives in India or here or in America or anywhere else. We are dealing with the actual facts of fear, pleasure, sorrow, death, and if there is anything sacred in life. Because if we don't find something real, something that is true, life has very little meaning. So if you are really serious to go into this matter, very carefully and with care, with attention, then you can share a great deal. But you have to be serious, really serious. And if you are, then if you listen to it, listen with care, with attention, with a sense of affection, not agreeing or disagreeing, that anybody can do. But if you really care to find out how to live properly, what is right relationship between human beings, then you would share completely. Now it's important for us to be clear on the use of certain words, both in this passage and later on throughout our discussions and in the text. Because many of the words will be used here with a meaning which is very different from the common meaning understood in society. So when he talks about the religious mind, he's talking about a mind in quest of truth. He's not interested, not talking about what is commonly understood in society as a mind which has a belief, which has certain rituals and worship, and so on, or a certain code of morality by which it tries to live. That's not the meaning here. So it's basically, religion here is an inquiry into what is true and what is false, which he called self-knowledge, because it is not something that one can get from a book or from a teacher. It is not simply a correct idea or a correct description or a correct explanation. Religious truth is at the level of perception, and nobody can give us perception. We have to come upon perception for ourselves. I'm reminded of a talk he gave in Brockwood to the students there, where he tried to explain to them that the words of the Buddha and of Jesus Christ are illusions for you, because you have not found out the truth of that for yourself. So one of the students asked him, "Sir, aren't your words also illusions for us?" And he said immediately, "Yes, if you accept. If you just accept what he is saying and treat him as an authority, what you know is what he said. That's just a knowledge. That's not the truth which you have discovered. It's not your own perception. It is second-hand. And that does not transform consciousness. It may transform your ideas. It can give us an intellectual understanding. But the intellectual understanding of the truth is not the truth. That's one thing one has to very clearly understand here. Which is not to say that one should not analyze or one should not use intellectual understanding, but it is to say that it is something superficial when you are satisfied only with intellectual understanding. I remember in a certain dialogue with David Bohm. David Bohm said, "Sir, how can you explain that?" And Krishna tried to tell. Then he said, "Yes, but what about this? How do you explain that?" So Krishna stopped him and said, "Are you only interested in explanations?" So explanations, intellectual analysis, descriptions, they are not perception. So that has to be very clear. There is a path to come upon knowledge. The knowledge of the Buddha, the knowledge of Jesus Christ, the knowledge of what Krishnamurti has said. And one may have the ability to explain that knowledge also. But you still don't have the truth. If it was that easy, then the professor of Buddhist philosophy ought to be the Buddha. He's not. Because his consciousness is not the Buddha consciousness. And the professor of Christian theology is not Jesus Christ. Although he knows everything about Jesus Christ and he can explain the teachings of Jesus Christ, perhaps even better than Jesus Christ himself could do. But he doesn't have that consciousness. So the religious quest is for transformation of consciousness, which means transformation of the content of our consciousness, which is our conditioning. And that's why Krishnamurti emphasized that freedom from conditioning is the beginning of learning, not the end point of learning. That's not the aim to be achieved. Learning doesn't even start until you are free from conditioning. Now, it's particularly difficult for an educated man because we are trained to have points of view, to engage in debates and defend your point of view, argue intelligently, cleverly, and that's completely different from a mind in dialogue. A mind in dialogue is a mind that is living with questions, not living with conclusions and answers. If you are strongly attached to any opinion, that will color your inquiry and your perceptions. And therefore you don't see the truth. You don't get to see the truth. So we can discuss what are the barriers to the perception of truth. But we cannot discuss what creates the perception of truth, because it is pathless. It's pathless also for all major discoveries in science, in art, in music, and other areas as well. There's a beautiful book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, written by a man from MIT called Thomas Kuhn. He pointed out that scientists work very hard within a certain paradigm and collect data, all of which expands their knowledge in the field. But the real transformation of our worldview comes from deep insights which have nothing to do with that knowledge, which are outside that knowledge. And it is such insights that have brought about major progress in our understanding in science. There, of course, knowledge has a certain role because it creates questions. And then you dwell on those questions and you build further new knowledge. That's not the approach to be adopted here. One needs to approach questions which Krishnamurti is raising about our daily life afresh. Put aside your ideas, your knowledge, your identifications, because they will act as a barrier to the quest for truth. Knowledge is helpful in the scientific quest for truth about nature, but knowledge can be a barrier in the religious quest for transformation of consciousness. Which is not to say that knowledge should not be there or that analysis and thought are not to be used. But they cannot create perception. Their role is to create the question, and the question is important. But the answer cannot be obtained through logic and thought. You have to finally, therefore, go to your daily life, observe your own consciousness, keep these questions in your mind, and get your own perceptions from your observation of your own consciousness. At a certain level, it may seem, isn't that self-centered activity? Because I am all the time introspecting and looking into my own consciousness. The answer is no, it is not. Because you are not doing it in order just to resolve your problems. You are doing it in order to understand how your consciousness operates. And once you understand how your consciousness operates at a deep level, you have understood the whole of human consciousness. Because all human beings share the same consciousness. What is different is the conditioning in our mind, which is a very superficial layer in our brain, accumulated during this present lifetime on the basis of the environment in which we grow up, the particular family, the particular religion, the particular experiences and knowledge that we have received. Actually, the human body and the human consciousness is put together by millions of years of past. And this is just some 70, 80 years of past. And we give so much importance to it because we identify with it. And that's what constitutes the ego. If you ask an Indian to look at the Kashmir problem or to describe the Kashmir problem, you will find that he will adopt more or less all the arguments given by the Indian newspapers and the Indian government why Kashmir belongs to India. You ask the man in Pakistan, he will do the same, and he will give all the arguments that Pakistan is. So the mind is caught in the propaganda of one's own nation and one's own politicians and so on, because it has identified with one's own nationality. And therefore it becomes incapable of perceiving the truth and is trapped in asking not what is true, what is good, what is whole, but what will support my identification, my point of view. That's essentially the nature of the ego. It's not interested in the truth. It's interested in the victory for the me and the mind, profit for the me and the mind, pleasure and security for the me and the mind, and therefore it's not really looking for truth. Another very common example would be if two children have a fight, you find that the parents of each child take the side of their child. They are not really objectively looking at what took place and wanting to understand what was right and what was not right. They take they identify with their own child. It's the same process which happens between nations, between religions, between ideologies, dividing human beings. And that's the biggest barrier. The ego, the attachment to your own opinions, your own ideas, the feeling of ownership, of possession. So that the mind becomes like a personal lawyer, all the time defending and justifying the me and the mine. Lawyers are not interested in the truth. They are interested in the victory for their client. And that's what the mind becomes. So it may be very easy to say that I am in quest of truth, and that itself may not be a truth, because it's a deep-rooted instinct to seek pleasure, seek security, and avoid pain and avoid insecurity. So one has to be free of all that. So when Krishnamurti is saying you have to be serious, all this is the implication in that. You are not serious if you are just admiring him, praising him, liking him, making a hero of him, because the subject matter is not Krishnamurti. The subject matter is also not his teaching. Subject matter is yourself. Are you understanding yourself? That's the real purpose. And if you are doing any of those other things, then you are not serious. So this is extremely important to understand. My suggestion would be that we listen to each other with an open mind. We may differ from each other, but don't identify with a particular point of view to such an extent that you cannot even listen to another person. Now, why does Krishnamurti say, sir, don't agree or disagree? Just consider that for a minute. When somebody makes a statement and I say, I agree, it just means that I already think the same thing which he is telling. So nothing changes within me, not even the opinions. If I say, I disagree with you, you have made a conclusion and you reject what he says because you disagree with him. Again, you learn nothing out of that. So both agreeing and disagreeing are two unintelligent responses to that statement. That's what we are trained into doing. As through our education, we have always been taught to agree or disagree and to stand up for your own views and so on, fight. And that's a wrong approach. He's saying no. Have a mind in a state of dialogue. A mind that is in state of dialogue lives with questions and not with answers, and does not accept any authority, including the authority of its own experience. That's very, very difficult to do. But our own experience, there's nothing special about our experience. Experience also brings prejudice. Experience doesn't necessarily bring truth. If it did, all old people should be wise because they are much more experienced than young people. That's not an observed fact. Many of them are very cynical, very prejudiced. So wisdom doesn't come from just collecting experience. Wisdom doesn't come from intellectual understanding and reading philosophy and religious books or scriptures. It's like a mental property which is there. Property does not transform consciousness. neither your bank balance, nor your house property or wealth, nor your intellectual property. None of these really transforms consciousness. And therefore, when you are interested in transformation of consciousness, you are into a very deep inquiry where you need to go beyond what you consider to be yourself and pick up something from the unknown. It's rare, but not unknown. After all, the Buddha grew up as a Hindu with casteism and animal sacrifice and ritual and all that. How did he discover the falseness of all that and come upon a completely new teaching? Looked into the falseness of casteism. Similarly, Jesus Christ broke away from the Jewish beliefs. The Jews believed an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And he said, no, don't return violence with violence. Show your other cheek also. So the greatest human beings have been those who have broken away from their past. Socrates was a very wise man, but he said, I don't really know, but I want to ask you questions because you think you know. And they killed him for asking questions. So never to forbid inquiry. Krishnamurti gave great value to doubt and questioning, inquiry. I'll give you one personal episode which illustrates how he lived. I think it was 1980-81. I went to Brockwood to listen to him. I was in England, in Bristol, as a scientist working. After his talk, I went to meet him. He knew me. And he said, sir, the other day a man came here. He looked at the tent where I give my talks. He saw the grounds and the building here, the school building here. He came into the dining hall and ate lunch with us. And then after that, he came to see me. And he said, you have a nice thing going on here, haven't you? You set up a nice thing going on here, haven't you? So I felt a bit disgusted that somebody should attribute such motives to him. And I said, oh sir, there are always people like that, who cares? He held my hand and he said, no, don't brush him aside. I watched myself for a whole week before saying to myself, it's not true. It could be true. You mustn't just assume, take sides with your own self and reject the critic. The critic, that man looked at all that. He felt that this man had set up a nice thing going for him. That could be true. Because everybody respects you, everybody pays your airfare, and you get food and a place to stay, everything. You don't have to work from 9 to 5, and so on. You only talk. If that was the motive with which the talks were given, it becomes egoistic activity. And if the talks were given out of love, out of compassion, out of a feeling that you want to share these truths with colleagues or friends, then it is not an egoistic activity. So you have to watch very closely from where you are approaching, whether you are approaching egoistically or you are approaching because you really want to understand this phenomenon, the phenomenon of human consciousness. And though you are watching your own consciousness, because you can't really watch somebody else's consciousness, the deep truths which you discover from your own consciousness are universal truths. They apply to all human consciousness. There is a parallel in science. Scientists do their experiments in their own laboratory and discover truths from those experiments. But those truths then apply all throughout the universe, both in space and in time. They are eternal. So just as a scientist working in his laboratory can find out the laws that operate on the sun or anywhere else in the universe, in the same way, Krishnaji is saying, if you understand your own consciousness, you understand the human consciousness. And that brings about transformation, because then you don't feel angry, you don't feel violent. I mean, if I may again go back to Jesus Christ, when they were killing him, he is said to have said, God forgive them, for they know not what they do. He was feeling compassion for their ignorance, because he saw the ignorance out of which they were hating him and wanting to kill him. And he felt compassion for them. When we see a terrorist, we feel hateful of that terrorist because we feel he's doing such a wrong action. But if you look deeper, if you watch his whole life, you will see how he has become a terrorist, how much propaganda, how much ignorance, how much suffering he had to go through before he became what he became. Then you would feel the sympathy. When they show you a movie of his whole life, you feel sympathy. So that hatred is born of our ignorance. We don't see the whole truth. We see only the final action that was there. Again, I am reminded of an incident from Krishnamurti's life. He was giving talks in Bombay when Gandhiji was killed. The murderers were caught and the Lord punished them. But someone at the end of his talk asked him, "Sir, who was responsible for the murder of Gandhi?" And he said, he gave a long reply. You can see it in collected works for 1948, talk in Bombay. I think it was soon after 30th January. He gave a longish reply, but I'll summarize it. He said, each one of you who is divided from his fellow man on the basis of caste, on the basis of religion, on the basis of nationality, is responsible for that murder. The law says only those people were responsible who conspired and pulled the gun, the trigger of the gun to shoot him. And those were executed. But he's saying the whole of society, all of us are responsible. I understand that to mean that that man was not born a murderer. He was born in our society, educated in our society, brought up in our society, and he became a murderer. Because there was all this religious extremism, division, nationalism, and the mind got infected with all this. So whole of society is responsible. And who is whole of society? You and me. All that is a creation of our consciousness, our conditioning. And therefore, we are all contributing to that murder. We don't see it like that. So he raises very deep questions about our life, our concept of success, our concept of education, our idea of what is love, everything he questions. He's a great dissenter. Like Socrates, he's a great dissenter from society. One has to listen to a dissenter, not agree with him or take sides with him or join him, but it helps us to investigate what he is saying. And it deepens our understanding, which is why I think he said self-knowledge is the key to wisdom. And without wisdom, there is no transformation in consciousness. There is only control. You can have the noblest ideas about what you should do, what you should not do. But our decision doesn't work in that way. You can try it. Say to yourself, I will not get angry from tomorrow. I will not worry from tomorrow. I'll remain cheerful and happy from tomorrow, and see if your decision works. Or decision works only in very superficial things, what to eat, which job to take, which car to buy, what clothes to wear, and so on. You can't decide to be peaceful. You can't decide to love someone. You can't decide to be happy. So the greatest things in life are those which don't come from decision. And yet we give tremendous importance to what decision we are taking. Because the ego is propelling and saying, take the decision which will be profitable, which will bring security. And a narrow-minded mind, with a narrow vision, will, whatever is decision it takes, it is a narrow decision. It's not true, it's an illusion. It appears that if we join a church and a community, we feel more brotherly, and those people become your friends and they will help you in life and so on. So it feels as if you are very secure, but that also creates the division between you and the other religious group. And so unless you have a far vision, which is what wisdom is, the long vision, you don't see the damage of this identification. It appears that it's beneficial to you. And that's why the ego is an illusion. So all that is involved, which means all our views, all our life is just questioning everything. Not to ask us to adopt some other views, but just to examine deeply views, even things like personal property. He questions that. The way we treat our servants, and all this division between blacks and whites, what is going on right now. He questions all that. So ultimately, he is saying, we don't know what right living is. If we knew what right living is, our society wouldn't be the way it is. Every day our newspaper is telling us what is going on. And we are contributing to all that disorder. The disorder comes from the disorder in our consciousness. Disorder in consciousness is all these negative emotions our consciousness is prone to: anger, jealousy, fear, sorrow, frustration, boredom, etc. All the negative emotions. And he said, disorder has a cause. Therefore, it can be eliminated by learning what is the cause of that disorder and eliminating the cause. You can eliminate the cause because often the disorder arises out of illusion. Illusion means you are taking something to be true when it is not really true, not a fact of nature. It's just a construct of a human mind which you are accepting as true without watching the consequences of it. So Socrates also said an unexamined life is not worth living. And that is what Krishnamurti is asking us to do. So friends, this learning mind has to begin with not knowing, knowing that you don't know, having humility, doubt, inquiry, no strong opinions, no strong beliefs, and looking at facts and connecting with observations of our consciousness in daily life. Never disconnect what you are learning with your daily life. Religion, when it is disconnected with the daily life, becomes an escape. You don't have to accept this, investigate this. It becomes an escape. The real purpose of religion is to discover what is true and what is false. And truth lies at the level of perception. Therefore, nobody else can tell you what the truth is. You have to come upon it for yourself. But when you do come upon it, it really transforms your consciousness. The content of your consciousness undergoes a change, which is what is the transformation. So I'll end this introduction with these words. And if we have time, I would be happy to answer questions. Tomorrow, we will take up the first two chapters. So please read those chapters, preferably before you come for the session tomorrow, so that I will give a brief introduction to the points that Krishnamurti is raising, investigate them a little bit, and then we will have a dialogue about it. Which dialogue really means we are thinking together, not against each other, with no division, because both of us are interested in truth, and we have no opinion which we are holding on to, which we are not willing to question. So that's the approach, and that is the way one has to approach Krishnamurti's teaching throughout this whole course. And not end the inquiry just during these 2 or 3 hours, but in the rest of the week, to stay with those questions, watch your consciousness. That's real learning of self-knowledge comes from that. Thank you. I'll end it here. Rohan, you can tell what the procedure would be for asking questions.
Yes, if you have a question, please unmute yourself. And once you're done, please don't forget to mute again. And that's how I think we shall proceed.
We have about an hour.
Actually, the questions need to be written and sent out. Otherwise, with 46 people online right now, there could be cross-talking going on. And send the questions, and for today, I'll be the person who will read them out for you to Professor. Please write them down in the chat.
If there are no questions, that's fine too. We can discuss
Yes, sir.
it.
There is a first question here.
Yeah.
Let's read it out. Death is a fact. Fear is a fact. There is no difference between individual and collective. This is a fact. Question: what constitutes a fact? How do we arrive at a fact as opposed to non-fact?
The disorder in our consciousness mostly arises from some notions in our mind which are false, but which are taken to be true. And if you discover for yourself what is true and what is false, those notions end, and the corresponding disorder that it produces ends. Let me give a few examples. It was believed in the 19th century that children should be regularly beaten, otherwise they get spoiled. Spare the rod and spoil the child was the philosophy of education. And a lot of cruelty came. Children were treated very cruelly in some parts of our world. Even today that is happening. If you discover that that is false, and you discover that only when you have a larger view of education, that education is not meant just to train an individual in knowledge so that he can perform a job in society, that it is required to expand the vision of life, to learn about life, which includes the knowledge, but is not exclusively only the knowledge of techniques and methods and so on. Then you discover that if you threaten a child, then you damage him psychologically. And when you look at it holistically, you don't want to damage the child in education. So you see that it is false and it drops away. But so long as you function with that narrow vision, which is prejudice, which is illusion, it creates all this out of it. Another example would be for hundreds of years, perhaps thousands of years, men have maintained the view that women are inferior, that they are meant to be assistants to men, that they cannot do this, they cannot do that, man is superior to woman, and so on. Sons have been treated differently from daughters. If you accept all that, you grow up with all that, that becomes
from 5 to 7, not from 7 to 9. My mistake. So it's halfway through already.
no.
Go ahead, sir.
5 to 7, which is here 8 to 10. We started at 8, and it's now 9 by my watch. So we have a whole hour.
I think it was inadvertent comment.
Yeah, it's an inadvertent comment, sir. Please go ahead, Professor Krishna.
Yes. So I was pointing out that I was just giving examples of how illusions produce a lot of cruelty and disorder in our consciousness as well as in society. And illusions can be got rid of because they are not true. So if you don't identify with them, call them your culture and therefore support them, you examine them, then you can end that illusion. And if you end the illusion, the corresponding disorder ends and there is an actual change in your behavior and in your consciousness. That's what the Buddha taught. The Buddha said ignorance is the cause of sorrow. Ignorance not as lack of knowledge, but ignorance as illusion. It has a cause. The cause can be eliminated. This is what he said. And the way to eliminate it is through self-knowledge, through this learning mind, which is discerning what is true and what is false. You know, sir, there are these three inquiries of truth. One is the scientific inquiry. The other is the philosophical inquiry, which is reason and logic and rational conclusion and all that. And the third is this religious inquiry. It's only this last one that is concerned with transformation of consciousness. And therefore it's not merely intellectual. We must look at what kind of illusions are there in our consciousness. At the very superficial level, we have illusions which we call superstitions. They go away even with scientific inquiry. Then there are all these cultural illusions. Your belief, my belief, your religion, my religion, nationality, all this, our idea of success, all that, the importance that we give to achievement, not to goodness, but to achievement. We evaluate a human being on the basis of his achievements and then decide to respect him or love him or not. Evaluation. All that Krishnamurti questions as illusion. It is simply because we are accepting that way of life, that we are accepting those values, we live like that. And that creates competition, that creates rivalry, that creates division, and that creates a disorder in society. Also, the disorder within one's own consciousness, as anger, as jealousy, and so on. So by going to the root of it, not just saying anger is evil, one should not be angry. No. You are that anger. The anger arises in your consciousness. Can you study that as a phenomenon? Not say it's good, it's bad, it should be there, or try to suppress it and so on. Then that's not, you're not trying to understand it. So the main change is to go from a reacting mind, a judging mind, to a learning mind. It doesn't matter if you have boredom or you have jealousy, it doesn't matter. So long as you approach it with a learning mind, you will free yourself of it. But if you're just reacting to it, forming opinions about it, it won't go. And that's the mistake that the orthodox religions made. They gave a moral code saying, love your neighbor, show your other cheek also, and so on, so on. I explained earlier that you can't do all those things by your decision. It needs a lot of wisdom to come upon that. Okay? But people are capable of it. Obama stayed 28 years in prison, came out without any hatred or bitterness towards the white man. It needs tremendous wisdom, tremendous understanding to be able to do that. And that made a tremendous difference to the whole of South Africa. Otherwise, we would have had brutal killing between whites and blacks in South Africa. Same way, Gandhi made a lot of difference to the independent movement of India. Otherwise, there would have been tremendous violence and so on. They were not free people, but they were wise people. It's not easy not to hate your enemy. It needs a very deep understanding. But you have to question that. If you say he behaved badly with me, therefore I hate him, and you justify and you accept that, you will never learn. So you have to watch how hatred arises in you, what it does to you inwardly and outwardly, to your life. Then when you see the danger of it, the whole process, it will drop away. That's a teaching. You don't have to accept it. Test it. Either it's true or it's not true. If it is not true, just throw it away. If it's true, then it has value because that's the truth. I don't know if I have answered your question.
So the next question, if I may.
Yeah.
How can I see that I'm responsible for the current state of the world, not intellectually?
By seeing the truth that what transpires in our consciousness is what is transpiring in society. Society is just a projection of that which goes on in our consciousness. If you hate your friend or your brother or your wife, the psychological causation behind that is the same as the hatred between America and China or between India and Pakistan. Each one of us is violent. Each one of us has competition, rivalry, jealousy. Therefore, our countries have violence and jealousy and competition. So we are all contributing to this sea of violence in which we are living. And each one is saying, when I just put 1 or 2 drops into the ocean, so what can I do? What like that? What does it matter? I was in the school, one has to explain this thing to the children. So one of the ways I used to explain was, each person eats something and throws the wrapper in the campus. For him, he feels that, why should I go and put it in the garbage can? So he feels it's right because I don't have to take the trouble. Somebody will come and clean it. Now imagine if like that everybody else, if it's right for you, then it's right for everybody else. If everybody else does that also, what will happen to our campus? We will live in a dirty campus. In the same way, if you accept jealousy, you accept bribery, you accept ego and selfishness, we are all connected with each other. It will rebound on you also. The whole of society will be like that. If I steal, I might benefit from that theft. But if it's right for me, I'm spreading theft in the society, my things will get stolen. Everybody will live under constant fear. Those are the consequences. So Krishnamurti says, the individual problem is not separate from the world problem. And you are society, you are the world. We think that a good prime minister comes there, or another better messiah comes and tells us another, gives us another teaching. Then somebody else will come and create peace and happiness around me. I don't need to change. I remain the same. This is a fallacy. This is an illusion. Because each one of us is contributing to that disorder in society.
The next question, sir. What are the predicaments to true observation and investigation?
all those things which I pointed out in my lecture. Simply admiring your guru, enjoying his lectures, not really investigating what he is telling, not really concerning oneself with the wisdom of the teacher and wanting to come upon that wisdom, just feeling happy, content with his words and admiring him and spreading it. So all the dangers which are there in traditional religion are there also in Krishnamurti, because those dangers are within us, not a question of for Buddha or for Krishnamurti or for Gandhi. There is no difference. The dangers are within us. If we accept something on authority, we create authority. If you are not aware that in this field, authority has no meaning, because the authority, Krishnamurti is also not an authority. If you just accept what he says because you say he was a very wise man, this must be true because he is saying it, you haven't come upon that truth. You only have an idea about what he said. And I pointed out that the professor of Buddhist philosophy is not Buddha. The professor of Christian theology is not Jesus Christ. The professor of philosophy is not Socrates. So all that is a value. To accept words and knowledge in place of truth is illusion. And that's a barrier. So there are lots of barriers, and particularly I think the barriers for an educated mind are greater because we have so many things we have been trained in. The importance that we give to achievement and the way we evaluate people and then decide whether to respect them and so on. There is a talk in which is there on the video. Krishnamurti said, "Sir, you are all so respectful to me, but I wonder whether you really know what respect means. Because I see that you are not respectful of your servant. You are not respectful of your wife and children. You are not respectful of the man on the road or the dog or the tree. So you don't really know what respect is. You accepted the definition of respect given by society. The man who is powerful, the man who is knowledgeable, that man is respected. It's a false notion. Like that, so many things are false in our mind. And therefore in our relationships, all that operates, all our decisions are based on images, big illusions. Muslims are terrorists, blacks are despicable people, images about that. Then you have already got that prejudice with which you are looking at the man in front. You are not approaching him afresh. You are not watching him, learning about him. You already formed an idea, prejudged. Prejudice comes from prejudge. You already judged and condemned. So all that is illusion. And from that illusion comes cruelty and so on. All that can be eliminated. Pain cannot be eliminated. If you fall down and break your bone, Krishnamurti falls down and breaks his bone, he will feel the pain because that's biological. But all this is psychological. All those cultural illusions. Then there are psychological illusions which psychologists talk about, complexes and so on, based on your childhood experience or your own personal sorrow and things. And finally, they say The feeling that I am a separate individual is also just a construct of thought. It's not a fact of nature. We will never get to that. But if you don't inquire, you don't see through any illusion. And a mind that's full of illusion has no wisdom. It's just imitating other people and living. So he used to say, you have all become second-hand human beings, following somebody, imitating somebody, without finding out for yourself what the truth is. So that's why I said in the beginning, he is raising very deep questions about our lives, our beliefs, the way we live, our conditions, and saying all that is contributing to the chaos in society. And you are not seeing that. You are just wanting to put things right externally. So you have the United Nations to solve the problem of war. But deeply, if you examine what is the problem of war, is the hatred between the two communities. You are not addressing that. So you make some sort of agreement, it keeps breaking. It's like every time you get a headache, you have an aspirin to cope with the headache. But you have never found out what the underlying disease is. And so the headache keeps coming. Exactly the same thing applies also for all these psychological problems that we have. They're recurrent because we have really not learned what it is to live rightly.
We'll go to the next question, sir. Man is obsessed with going to Mars, yet he is not interested in inner travel as priority. What's the future for humanity?
Can you repeat that?
Yes, sir. Man is obsessed with going to Mars, yet he is not interested in inner travel as a priority. What is the future for humanity?
There is a scientific book written by a cosmologist who was one of the foremost scientists. He was president of the Royal Society of London. He has written a book, Our Final Century. And he gives scientific facts why it's very unlikely that human beings will survive this century. We are not aware of those problems. And even if we are aware, we are ignoring them. We are continuing to do what we know how to do. Because each person wants to do that to get the Nobel Prize, another still faster aeroplane, still better engine, still better cell phone. Are these the main priority in life today? Obviously not. So that's an illusion. To go on doing something and ignore something which is far more important to be addressed, like ecological problems, like these problems of nationality and division, of race and so on, or even crime. We're not addressing those problems. We are content with we have created a court and we have created judges and we have created a structured police and prison and so on. And we think now that's done. It's not done. We are not asking the deeper question. Child is born in your society. Why does he become a criminal? What kind of life are you giving to him? What kind of education are you giving to him? What kind of care are you providing for him? All that determines what he is going to become. It's not responsible just to catch hold of him because he becomes a criminal and then put him in the prison, and he comes out even more hardened after that prison experience, which is what is going on. So we are not able to do it because we don't have the wisdom. And we don't have the wisdom because we have never looked this way. We have looked at the Mars, we have looked at the sun, we understand why the sky is blue, but we don't understand what love is, what right relationship is between two human beings. We don't understand. Cooperation between man and woman broken down. It's pointing out that we don't understand, right? We don't know how to work cooperatively. Even professors have been in several departments. The professors are all backbiting, feeling jealous of each other, aggressive, polite outwardly, inwardly hating each other. So ultimately, what we are at our consciousness, it manifests in our relationships, and millions of such relationships constitute society. So the fact that our society is in so much disorder is pointing out that we have not learned to live like this. But nobody is concerned with solving this problem. Everybody is interested in still faster aeroplane, better computer, and so on. All your research efforts. Nobody is interested in eliminating war. You're interested in winning the war, and therefore every country building up armaments. What could be more stupid than that? When there is so much poverty, there is so much hunger, there's so much disease. We are spending money in building armaments. Sir, I'm sorry, there is no future for humanity. We are the greatest pests on earth, the greatest parasites on earth. This is a scientific fact. It is not, it's proven. No other animal has created as much damage to the earth and to its own species and cruelty as human beings are. And yet we feel superior. We feel we are very intelligent. We are not. We have defined intelligence, unintelligence. Krishnamurti said, there is no intelligence without compassion. And in the third volume of Commentaries on Living, there is a chapter, please read it. It's headed, its title is, Without Love and Goodness, You Are Not Educated. Does our education care whether you grow up with love and compassion and goodness? There's some lip service, don't steal, tell the truth always, and so on. It's not, it's too superficial. So we are very ignorant people, and ignorance is the cause of our sorrow. And we are trying to patch up and solve the external effects. It keeps on breaking down. Sorry, it sounds pessimistic, but I'm neither pessimistic nor optimistic. I'm looking at facts. That's what it is. There is no simple solution. All simple solutions have been tried. Human beings are very intelligent people. All simple solutions have been tried. Communism has been tried. Socialism has been tried. Science has been tried. Religion has been tried. Messiahs have been tried. Societies, theosophical societies, is that tried. Nothing. At the end of it all, we are where we are. If I might give you a deep question to carry with you today. If If you look at the Theosophical Society in the 1920s, it had all the luminaries in every field. It had a leader like Mrs. Annie Besant, extremely wise woman who had done so much social reform in England and all over the world and in India. Large-hearted, unselfish, benevolent lady. It had some of the experts of occultists like Leadbeater. It had educationists like Steiner. People like Gandhi and Nehru and Tagore were all interested. Hume was interested. A galaxy of people. Woodhouse was there. And you had excellent ideals. And you had this doyen of luminaries in that society with those ideas. And one of the best leaders leading that society. What was the result? Steiner fell out and left because he didn't approve of the choice of Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti, after a few years, went out on his own because they had differences with Leadbeater and Arundel and Theosophical leaders. Leadbeater went off to Australia. Mrs. Besant died a bit frustrated. That was the result. So if those people, such deeply religious people, intellectuals, artists, poets, could not work together, leave the detailed analysis. Why did this person leave and overwrite and why? Keep on juggling that. I'm just talking about the broad fact that those 15, 20 people could not work together. The ants cooperate, cockroaches cooperate. Human beings are not able to cooperate with you. Something is wrong with us, no? Brothers fall out, man and wife fall out. We have not learned. We have not learned. I'm sorry to say. And this kind of talent and that kind of intelligence doesn't bring love and compassion into consciousness. It creates pride. It creates ego further. And ego creates more division. So that's what we are promoting. In education also we are promoting. Through sport also we are promoting. Victory, hero. We are promoting that. And then we are complaining that this man has become egoistic, he doesn't love, and he's divided. So a lot of ignorance behind our state of our society. And Krishnamurti is attacking that. I mean, he's not trying to solve your immediate problem. It won't solve. Basically, he's creating a lot of questions. He's not giving you answers. He's creating a lot of questions and he's saying, stay with these questions, learn about it, watch it, through watching yourself, and you will come upon a deeper understanding of yourself. That will bring about change. You can't change yourself. You can only learn. And change will come as a byproduct of learning. But we are interested in using will to bring about change. And that's the measure of the ego. Doesn't work. Our so-called progress hasn't worked, but it's an illusion. That's not progress. We don't have air to breathe. We don't have all our food. Our water is polluted. Such poverty and riches, wealth, and so on. We think we are very intelligent and we have created this society. So he refused. He said, you have to be outside this society in order to point out. If you are within that society, you become party to all this. They didn't accept that the problem of Kashmir is only because of the people there, and the problem of Middle East is because of people in Arabs and Israelis there. We are all contributing to that. He's looking at it from a very much larger perspective.
Sir, one last question perhaps for the day.
Yeah.
I observe the mind. I observe the body. I feel I'm not the body or the mind. So what are we really? What is our true identity from a religious mind perspective? Is death the end? Why
No.
is the state of unknown, no mind, and perception so important? Is that state a goal?
No, it's not a goal. The moment you make it into a goal and you try to achieve it, you have brought in the ego process. It becomes a desire process. All the consequences of desire will follow. The desire to learn about something is not egoistic. The desire to achieve something, become something, is egoistic. And the main problem is the ego. So anything that sustains the ego is not going to solve the problem. The ego is the problem. So you could say, have noble thoughts. It has been said. Achieve noble aims. It has been said. But if you try to achieve them egoistically, it will create problems. If somebody comes in your way, you will brush him aside. Violence will follow as a consequence. If you are not able to achieve it, frustration will come. Disorder in consciousness. So the problem is not so simple. You can't just say, do this, don't do this, and it will be solved. So nothing was wrong with the Marxist philosophy. To each person according to his needs, from each person according to his abilities. Beautiful philosophy. Why has it failed? Because people inwardly are not living that way. So whether you put them in Russia or in any other place and you make some sort of structure, ultimately if there is violence, there is greed, there is selfishness, it will manifest in that structure. This is not something that can be solved structurally, which is not to say that certain structures are not better than other structures. It's not being said that. Of course they are. A democratic structure is better than an autocratic dictatorial structure. But it's not a problem of structure only. It's a problem of consciousness at the level of consciousness. That's one of the major things Krishnamurti has pointed out, which we don't have to accept, but we have to listen to and question. He said the crisis is in consciousness. You think the crisis is out there. No, the crisis is in human consciousness. He said that right in 1929 or 30. And therefore, some people must work for the transformation of consciousness. And if we are not able to do that, whatever is happening will be happening. And you will end up with another world war. Sooner or later. He was asked, at the Brandeis University, he gave a talk, and one professor asked him, "Sir, what, in your opinion, is the future of higher education?" And he said, "Quite frankly, sir, there is no future."
So can we take one more question, sir?
Where it's 9:40 here Eastern time, that means about
Yes, sir.
6:40 in.
So let's take one more question, sir.
All right, sure.
If it is futile to count on the best of humanity, which, as you said, was unable to work together, if it is absolutely futile, shall we surrender to the life of love and compassion?
You can't surrender because you don't have it. You have to come upon love and compassion. And the way to come upon is to learn about yourself, which is all this self-knowledge that Krishnamurti is talking about. Without that, it is just slogans that you must love your neighbor. You won't be able to love your neighbor. If there is no love in your heart and you decide to love him, you will go and bring him flowers and you will give him a Christmas card. You will do all the symbolic things, but there is no love in your heart. It becomes hypocrisy. You are pretending to love and you don't really love. Hypocrisy is not a virtue. So he said, virtue cannot be practiced. Virtue is a state of being, a state of consciousness. You have to come upon it. Socrates said that long ago. He said there is only one virtue, and that is order in consciousness. All other virtues are manifestations of this order in consciousness. And the only way to come upon order is to eliminate the disorder in consciousness. And the only way to eliminate the disorder is to learn about yourself. And so he said, every time you feel angry, every time you experience disorder, which is very painful and therefore easy to be aware of, it's an opportunity to learn about yourself. From where did it arise? Why, what happened? Why did I feel insulted? Why did I feel angry? Why was I hateful and violent? From where did it come? But our mind has not been directed inwards. It has been directed outward. We curse that chap, oh, he insulted me and he's my enemy, and so on. We divide people into supporters and opponents, enemies and friends. That's division. We have not understood how division occurs. So we have to go deeply into this. Why do we keep on measuring, evaluating, then deciding whether somebody should be a friend, should I love him, should I respect him or not? It's at that level. Division comes from there, the psychological thing. I'm not saying it is easy. It is not easy because we have become very complicated human beings. We have a very complex, complicated mind. We are not simple. We are not innocent. We are not humble. We may pretend to be humble, but we are really not humble. And all that is needed for learning. You can't learn without that. So tomorrow we'll take up the first two chapters where he points out all this. He points out what conditioning is. Go deeper into it. Come prepared with your questions. Read those chapters. And we will give a lot of time for discussion. Thank you. I think we should end it today.
Thank you, sir. We'll see you.
Right.
Thank you, sir. And thank you everyone for joining today.
Right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. This is Prakash.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Prakash.